Good morning friends, I am Ashis Agarwal from team NGOenabler, and today I will discuss on a very important topic: how to handle the FCRA inspection at the time of registration, prior permission or renewal. That is, what all requires an organization to keep themselves ready at the time of inspections conducted by the FCRA department. First and foremost, let me remind you that in the Amended FCRA Rules 2020, the clause for inquiry before renewal was inserted for the first time, although it was not made compulsory. It was said that wherever the authorities might deem fit, they can conduct the investigation to satisfy themselves. However, at the time of registration and prior permission, it's a mandate. Moving on to the topic, how an organization need to prepare itself for such inspections and successfully manage it. So first and foremost is registered address. This is the very first point required to be kept in mind, that the FCRA inspectors will visit the registered address provided in the form, which usually matches with that mentioned in your memorandum of association or trust deed. If for any reason it's found closed or the organization is not existent at the said address, red flag might be raised by the inspector in his report. Sometimes they might call at the contact number given, sometimes they might not, and just submit a report of the organization being non-existent. So the FCRA organizations, especially those applying for first time registration and prior permission, needs to be extra careful regarding this point. In case the organization's address was changed after the application was made due to any reason, you should file Form 6A intimating the department of such change, so that proper compliances are in place from your side, and produce the copy of application at the time of inspection. Next is KYC documents of Board of Trustees or governing body members. The organization should keep the copy of PAN and Aadhaar of all the board members, along with the complete details such as the name, designation, occupation, email ID and contact number. Please note, Aadhaar number is now a mandatory prerequisite for renewal, registration and prior permission after the FCRA Amendment 2020. Remember, they might not stop only there. If any of the trustee or members are carrying on any business in their personal capacity, or any of them have any relation with each other, I repeat, if any of the trustees or members are carrying on any business in their personal capacity, or any of them have any relation with each other, the officers might further investigate each point to their satisfaction by calling for such documents as deemed fit by them, to satisfy themselves that the organization's activity is independent. I repeat, to satisfy themselves that the organization's activity is independent of any such relation or business. So be prepared with all the relevant documents in this regards. No specific document can be mentioned here because it will differ on case-to-case basis. Also remember, the details of the members as filled in the application shall be cross-verified by the visiting officers. So in case of any change after the application, be prepared with the copy of resolutions passed to that effect, the resignation or transfer letter of the outgoing member, and the appointment letter of the new trustee or member if already appointed. You also need to file Form FC6E intimating the department of such change in committee members. Coming to the third point, FCRA audit report, books of accounts and other accounting records. As per the requirements of the FCRA regulations, the FCRA registered organizations need to maintain separate books of accounts and get a separate audit report. I repeat, the FCRA registered organizations need to maintain separate books of accounts and get a separate audit report for the FCRA funds. So every organization might have to produce the same before the concerned officers at the time of inspection. Now, what is more important here is that the organizations need to ensure and cross-verify whether the figures as recorded in the books of accounts are matching with that reported in the audit report. Also, all the receipts and expenses that have been duly recorded should be supported and substantiated with proper evidences and should be verifiable. I repeat, all the receipts and expenses that have been duly recorded should be supported and substantiated with proper evidences and should be verifiable. This is what is called for to understand the transparency level of the organization, especially with regard to FCRA funds. For example, if you are into a project which requires conducting awareness programs or development trainings, the list of participants with their names, contact numbers and address should be there as supporting documents. Or suppose if you are into sponsorship of children, the file for each children should be maintained containing all the details such as the name, photograph, KYC details of parents, school admission details, progress reports or report cards, receipt of direct payment to schools or to child's account, and many more of such documents. Coming to the fourth point, FCRA annual returns and quarterly intimation. Although the returns must have been filed online for every quarter and also annually, still those can be called for inspection for further detailed investigation. Since project-wise fund balances and details were made mandatory to be reported from financial year 2018-19 in Form FC4, it should be ensured that the project balance should match with the project fund as reflected in the audit report, as well as the books of account reflects the same picture of the fund position. I repeat, it should be ensured that the project balance should match with the project fund as reflected in the audit report, as well as the books of accounts reflects the same picture of the fund position. Any mismatch in the project balances in any document might lead to raising of red flag by the concerned officer. In the fifth point, I am discussing project activity reports. This is one of the most important documents which will ensure that the organization have been carrying out the activities in line with the objects for which the registration was granted. As you are already aware, the nature of objects for which FCRA registration or prior permission is granted are religious, cultural, economic, educational and social. The genuineness of the organizations which are actually carrying out such activities is confirmed through the activity or annual reports, which should usually be substantiated with project reports approved by the donor and photographs while conducting such activities. Any deviation from the nature for which the FCRA registration was granted might lead to raising of red flag by the concerned officers. It would be better if the organization also maintains a detailed sheet of its activities containing the complete address of all the places where such activities are being carried out and the project details which is being carried out at each such place. This is more important in case of those organizations which are a parent body to many small units. Then comes the secretarial records. Needless to say, for most of the organizations, the members as were there at the time of creation of trust or society might be different from the current list. That is completely acceptable, but you might be asked for the complete trail of records such as the resolutions, minutes, appointment letters, and many more of such documents through which the sequence of such changes can be tracked. I repeat, you might be asked for the complete trail of records such as the resolutions, minutes, appointment letters, and many more of such documents through which the sequence of such changes can be tracked. Also, they would sometimes want the minutes of the AGM and other committee meetings to check whether various decisions taken by the management have been properly authorized and recorded and proper compliances related to the same are in place or not. Then comes the bank statements of FCRA designated bank account and utilization accounts and other related records. The visiting officers might also ask you for the copy of bank statements for any number of years they want to investigate. Usually, it will not exceed for previous 5 years because the last renewal must have taken place 5 years ago. On a sample basis, which can be the nature of transaction or the volume of transaction, I repeat, on a sample basis, which can be the nature of transaction or the volume of transaction, they might select some payments or receipts and go deep into the trail of its documents to confirm the authenticity, transparency, and accountability from the perspective of FCRA regulations. The trail might start from the project report written and later approved by the donor to the remittance letters sent by the donors, from the budget approved to actual utilization done by the organization, and more of such documents. So it's very essential for the organization to maintain proper records and documentation with respect to receipts as well as utilization of funds. At last comes the fixed asset register. The visiting officers might be very much interested in knowing about the utilization status of the assets purchased from the FCRA funds. So first, they will call for records of all the assets purchased from FCRA funds, and then they might also sometimes physically verify the assets by visiting its present location. I would like to remind you that in FCRA annual return, the details of land and building not utilized for more than 2 years is required to be reported now. So you can understand the reason for such inquiry into the assets position, and you must be prepared for all the necessary clarifications to satisfy them. An asset register with relevant details of the assets such as the nature, location, model number, amount, name of the vendor from whom it was purchased, invoice number, and the date of purchase should be maintained by the organizations, especially for those purchased from FCRA funds. Apart from the documents and records we discussed till now, this year at the time of renewal, there might be some special focus on compliances with respect to the FCRA Amendment 2020. Opening of SBI account, no subgranting to even FC registered Indian organizations after 28 September 2020, mandatory quoting of Aadhaar for all the members, and many more. Out of all the amendments, the key focus will be on spending towards administrative expenses. I repeat, out of all the amendments, the key focus will be on spending on administrative expenses. As you all must be aware by now, the cap on spending towards administrative expenses was reduced from 50% to 20%. So, the officers at the time of inspection might look for accuracy in recording the admin expenses of the project and the organization as a whole, and might take a different view on certain expenses which must have been shown as program or activity cost. So, The management need to be very meticulous and reasonable while deciding upon what construes as admin expenses and what not, with a proper justification of the same. I repeat, the management needs to be very meticulous and reasonable while deciding upon what construes as admin expenses and what not, with a proper justification of the same. So I think we have covered almost all the major aspects which an organization and its management need to keep in mind before the inquiry or inspection takes place for renewal, registration or prior permission under FCRA. For more such tutorials and updates, keep tuned to our channel. Don't forget to subscribe it, and for any queries you can mail us or comment below. Thank you.